Click, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. James chapter 4. Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. Chapter 4. So what is James talking to us about in this instance? So first of all, he says, come now in verse 13, you, and then in chapter 5, verse 1, he says the same thing, come now you. So who is he talking to? Maybe that's an easier, better question. You people, I'm talking to you. Yeah, in the most broad sense, if we go back to chapter 1, he's talking to the dispensation. So all those who have been spread abroad who are believers in the one true God. So it is particularly to the Jews, but also inclusive of the general church. At this point, it would primarily be Jews. There would be some Gentiles, but primarily this is a Jewish religion at this point. Predominantly, he's talking about the self-determined. And it really is practical atheism. It is a person who says, I believe in God, but then they determine their own destiny. They believe that by their intelligence and their strength, by their cunning and their plans, they will do such and such and perform such a thing. So he summarizes it in verse 16 as people who boast in arrogance. So he starts out and he calls out arrogant people who are boasting about their plans. So it is based, verse 13, on self-determination. They are saying, it's my life, I'm going to live it my way. And what James is saying is, it might be your life, but what is the value of your life without God? What is the meaning of your life without God? You say you have plans and you're going to do such and such, but what value is that without God? He says, you're being arrogant. You're being puffed up. You're almost making yourself out to be God. So verse 13, he calls out to those who say today or tomorrow we will go such a town, spend time, make money. Right? This is similar to what we're going to talk about in chapter 5, talking to the rich, but this is different. It's not just about the money. The money is its own issue that we're going to address in just a minute. So what is the core issue here? So it says, you know what? I think, now this is very apropos to me and our family, I think I want to get into real estate. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to buy lots of houses, and I'm going to be buku rich. All I got to do is step A, B, and C. I've read the book. I've watched the YouTube, gone through the whole YouTube Academy, and now I'm prepared to build my life. There was no conversation about the divine. There's no thought that says, you know what? God, is this what you desire for me? Like, is this the path I should walk on? Is this the future that you want me to have? Because I'm imagining a future that I want to have. And that's where James is like, whoa, pump the brakes. It's not your future to have. See, Jesus is the past, he's the present, and he is the future. So if you are to have a future, it's all about Jesus. You want to know how I know this? What happens at the end of time? Jesus arrives. What happens for the rest of eternity? Jesus is present. Okay? So all of eternity and all of our hopes and dreams are summarized in this. Jesus will return for us. And we will be with him. And we will know him as he knows us. Brilliant. We are so excited about that. But this person doesn't care for that future. They're caring for their own future. there's a certain pragmatism to like planning your future. It's just practical. Do you have a 1-year plan? Like, what are you going to do this year, right? What are your goals this year? You should, right? When you live a purposeful life, you should know what you want to accomplish this year. If you don't have something you're aiming for, you're purposeless, you're aimless, right? You need goals. So you have a 1-year goal, you have a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal, a 20-year goal. Like, you want to project out and see your future. But here's the funny thing. When I'm 105 years old, that is still short-sighted. So James is addressing this and saying today or tomorrow. Like, you think you own your today? No. Listen to what he says. Verse 14, yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. So what does God know? Everything. God knows everything. What do we call that? There it is, omniscient. God is omniscient. Now, if you think you're God, what must you have? Omniscience. You must know all things, right? So if you think that you can lead your life because you know everything, James says really quickly, you don't even know today. I woke up today and I was driving to work like I do every single day. Same freeway, same exact time. I leave within the same minute. I just know that this is my minute. I got to get out the door by this minute. Get on the freeway and I'm cruising along and all of a sudden traffic just stops. It's just dead. And I'm starting to panic. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be late. You know what? I didn't know what today was going to bring. I didn't know that somebody's car was going to catch on fire. I don't know what happened to those people. You know, we pray for them. Hope everything's okay. But you don't wake up thinking, I know exactly what's going to happen today. Or let me rephrase that. Do you wake up thinking, you know exactly what's going to happen today?
Not exactly.
Not exactly?
That's a rough idea.
Not anymore, right? I think there's a innocent ignorance about being young and being hopeful and thinking like, I know exactly what today holds. It's going to be good. It's going to be joyous. It's going to be great. And then as you age, you find out, oh boy, here we go. I woke up today and it's a new day. It could be good. It could be bad. It could be bland. We don't know what today holds. Every day is a surprise. And I hope you enjoy that because there's quite a bit of that. Yeah, we're going to have quite a long time of, I don't know what today holds. So first of all, God is omniscient and we are not. We are so blind to reality. We don't know the next 10 minutes. Somebody could drive their car through the church. There's just zero concept of the spinning ball of our lives in this universe that we can comprehend 1 second from now. We hope, we have expectations, but that doesn't mean it's reality. See, God knows reality. So not only do we not know these things, he goes on and he says, what is your life? What type of question is that? What is your life? Do I want you to answer that question? It's rhetorical. A rhetorical question has a meaning already installed in it. You don't have to answer it because I'm going to do it for you. Okay, this is a rhetorical question. And he says this, you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. What in our modern day, what would we call mist that appears and then vanishes? Fog. That's exactly it. Or dew, vapor, right? Have you guys seen fog? Yeah, okay. So living in the desert, you never know. Sometimes there's not a lot of fog here. We could say clouds. We could say clouds. We could be like, hey, look, a cloud. Oh, it's gone. Because in Vegas, we go months with a cloudless sky for quite a bit. So where does vapor come from? Water, moisture, heat, condensation, thermal dynamics. It's a difference in temperature between the ocean and the land, and then as the wind comes and it creates things. Here's the great thing about fog and vapor. It's created. It's created. It's not controllable, right? Like if your vapor and a wind comes, what do? Oh, I don't think so. I know my rights. I'm standing right here. You can't stop me. No, you're a vapor that is just blown by the wind. You blow in, and then what happens when the sun rises? You're gone in an instant. Just a little bit of heat. You're so fragile. You're created, you're blown around, you're seen in a moment, and you're gone just as fast. It doesn't take much for your life to vanish. And honestly, this is sad. It's reality. Vanish and be forgotten. When we die, almost nobody will remember us. Raise your hand if you know your grandparents personally. Raise your hand if you know their life story. Raise your hand if you know your grandparents' parents. We're talking 100 years. Do you know how many generations have come before us? And we know almost nothing about any of them? But even then, what do you know about Abraham Lincoln? Probably one of the most notable people in history. I know very little about him. I've seen pictures of him, and his life is still ubiquitous, right? He's gone in a vapor. So first of all, we're not God. Second of all, we don't know what our today or tomorrow holds. And third of all, the real procedure of our life is fleeting. So what is our mentality? What are we supposed to wake up and think on a daily basis? So this is what we do. We wake up, we think, we contemplate, we plan. It's not bad to plan, it's good to plan. We plan, but we always do it knowing this. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, so I trust in God. I trust in Jesus. So I'm going to say, verse 15, if God is willing, this is potentiality. This is, I know I have the potential for this future, but that future can only be recognized if God's grace allows it. My life is only driven by the breeze of the Holy Spirit, that I am a vapor blown in a direction, that I am simply an essence that God is going to use for his purpose. Just like a day is 1,000 years and 1,000 years is a day to God, right? So his perspective of time. If you've been to San Francisco and you know what fog looks like, it happens every single day. Every day there's fog in the bay and then it rolls in on the land and it's gone by 9, 10 o'clock, right? As soon as the sun starts to come up. That is God's purpose. That's his design. We are to be here. We are to fulfill that purpose and to go the way of all men. We are to pass on and move forward. So the goal is to accomplish what God has asked of us to do. If the Lord is willing, we will make our plans, we will design our life, and you know what? We will do it mindfully, knowing that we are only here for a momentary season, and that season is for his will to be accomplished. So it's not self-determination, it's Christ's determination. It's his determination of our destiny. Does that make sense? Verse 16. As it is, you boast in your arrogance, and all such boasting is evil. It is very strong language. What makes it evil? So you're thinking too highly of yourself. Remember how we talked about in the beginning, self-determination is kind of placing yourself on God's throne? That's almost one of the highest offenses, if I had to think about it. Like, if I attempted to assassinate the president so that I could be the president, what would be the consequences? Capital punishment, right? It's treason, it's all the above. Now, if I were to steal another man's wife so that I could take his place as her husband, it's not as extreme, right? But pride is usurping God's throne, which is Satan's domain. God does not take kindly to that. See, what James says, and we'll get back into Daniel chapter 4, but James chapter 1, verse 16 through 17, what does James say to everybody? He says, "Don't be deceived, my beloved brothers. Every good and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation of shadow or due to change." And then he says, "Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth." Listen, every day is a gift. All of our life is a gift. And what do we do with that gift? Think that we own it. think that we created it, think that we can determine our destiny, that is the epitome of arrogance and evil. It is idolatry, worshiping not the one true God, but a false God, yourself. Self-determination is seating yourself on God's throne, and it is evil. Let's read Daniel chapter 4. This is a fascinating story about King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Persia, the Medo-Persian army takes over Babylon. So, imagine that I am the president of the United States. Imagine that I am the president of the United States. And I think to myself, you know what? I think I could take Canada. Sounds like the big man right now, right? So I move in and I take over Canada. And then I go over and I take over Russia. And then I go down and I take over Mexico. And I'm heading towards Brazil. All of South America, okay? If I were to conquer all those nations, I would be like the Babylonians. The Babylonians conquered the known world. They were big time. The Grecians came in and took over after them. There are still mysteries of Babylon that people are astounded at. Their architecture and all this different stuff. So here's the king who established that sort of kingdom. What do you think his heart is like? He thinks, you know what? By my hand, I have done these things. By my intelligence, I have done these things. You know what I did 15 years ago? I woke up and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over here to such and such a town, and I'm going to take over. And then I'm going to go over here to such and such a city, and I'm going to take over. And you know what I did? I did those things. And he grew proud in his heart. He sent him a dream. And so Daniel was a dream interpreter. We know in the book of Daniel, he interprets dreams quite a bit. So Nebuchadnezzar goes to Daniel and he says, hey, interpret this dream for me. And Daniel was really, really upset. Like he was visibly shaken. And Nebuchadnezzar's like, what is it? And he's like, oh, king, I wish this was upon your enemy and not you. But God is going to humble you. He is going to make you act like a cow and go live in a field for 7 seasons. But he will restore to you your kingdom and your position in your mind, and you will know that he is the Most High God. So let's read this story. We get off right after the interpretation. So verse 28. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon. And the king answered and said, he's talking to himself, is not this great Babylon, which I have built by my mighty power as a royal residence and for the glory of my majesty? While the words were still in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven. O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom has departed from you, and you shall be driven from among men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and you shall be made to eat grass like an ox. And 7 periods of time shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whom he wills. Immediately the word was fulfilled against Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from among men and ate grass like an ox, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven till his hair grew as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, this is him speaking, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my reason returned to me. And I blessed the Most High and praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does according to his will among the hosts of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or say to him, what have you done? At the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my majesty and splendor returned to me. My counselors and my lords sought me, and I was established in my kingdom, and still more greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven. For all his works are right, and his ways are just, and those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. Long story short, boasting and arrogance. Here is the King of all kings on this planet. And God's like, you know what? I'm going to make an example out of you. So you planned your future, and you did these things, but you did not give me glory. You notice at the end there, he says that he is the true king. He says, verse 37, I praise and extol the honor of the King of heaven. That's like saying the King of the universe. He's like, look, I'm just a pawn. Like, he was the guy, and God humbled him. And he says this at the very, very end, verse 37, and his ways are right and just. Those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. What is our life? We think we own it. We think we are the manifest destiny of our own captaining of our lives. And God humbles the proud. So you know what we need to be? Humble. And we need to say, you know what? I have plans and I have ideas, and I hope that these plans come true, but let his will be done. If the Lord is so willing, because every good gift is given to me by God. That's all Nebuchadnezzar had to say. He needed to just look out at his kingdom and say, wow, I am blessed. I am blessed by the Most High God. He has given me these resources, and he has given me the intelligence and the understanding and the comprehension. He has given me all things. Every good and perfect gift is from him, and I give him thanks. That's what it means when we say, Lord willing. Lord willing, we'll be there. If God is so gracious and kind that this vapor won't just be blown away, I'll see you on Sunday. Okay, so yeah, James chapter 4, verse 17. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. Now this is a very quotable verse. I love this verse, okay, because it's just theologically rich. What it means is your conscience will accuse you when you know you should be doing something and you choose not to do it, you bear the consequences. It's sin in your heart. So, I drink alcohol. I don't actually, but if I drink alcohol and you don't drink alcohol, and then you're at my house and you're like, well, I think I'll drink some alcohol. So now you're drinking alcohol, and in your heart, you're doing something you believe is wrong, but yet you're doing it. Now to me, it's not wrong. To you, it is a legitimate sin. It will be counted against you. Your conscience will cry out, and that will be a strike one, right? This is sin. So when you know what you ought to be doing or not to be doing, it is sin. Now, that is the breadth of that verse. So let's just narrow it down to what James is talking about, right? That's not what we want to talk about here right now. We want to talk about why would he say that? Verse 17, after talking about verse 16, that arrogant boasting is evil. Everything we just talked about. What? Like, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to make plans and I'm going to be the captain of my own soul. Why would he say, you knew better and now it's sin for you? When going through this section, it is important to recognize the influence of our conscience. That's why he's bringing it up. We need to be mindful of our day-to-day life in that, yes, it is the Lord's will to be done, but we must actively choose right. We need to follow his commandments. And when we choose not to, it is sin. Chapter 5. So we talked about the arrogant. So he says, come now, you arrogant. Now we're going to go into, come now, you rich. Weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Who are the rich? How do you determine if somebody is rich? So let's just say I have 4 houses, 3 Maseratis, 18 kids, and I declare bankruptcy. Am I rich? Nope, I'm not rich. I'm actually really, really poor. So, I mean, we can't judge riches by things, right? What does it mean to be rich? Let's turn to Revelation chapter 3, just to the right. 17. So this is the church of Laodicea. Very, very common quote. People love to use this one. It says, verse 15, I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. Would that you were either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. Why? What does it mean to be hot and cold? Verse 17, for you say, I am rich. I have prospered. I need nothing. Not realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, so that you may be actually rich, and white garments, so that you may clothe yourself, and the shame of your nakedness may not be seen, and salve to anoint your eyes, so that you may see. So, I would summarize riches as in need of nothing. If you are rich, you don't need what? Food, clothing, housing, utilities, family, car, gas, cell phone, right? You might have to be paying those bills. You might not have a great 401k or retirement might not be amazing, but I'll tell you this. If you woke up today, a roof over your head, food in your belly, water keeping you hydrated, great sight, like let's say you're blind as a bat, but you can put glasses on and you can see, astoundingly rich. That is almost, not always, almost every American. Even homeless people have more going for them than most people throughout history. They are so fed that I see a lot of homeless people who are overweight. That doesn't mean that they're like nutritionally good. It just means they're overweight. But think about this. What do you think poor people did in the past without welfare? Like, did the government ever take care of people like that? No. This era of free things is insane. The amount of prosperity is insane. But again, it's not about what you have in the bank account. It's about lacking nothing. It's about being satisfied with your things, not with God. It is people that I would like to call who are need nothingers. Do you need anything or do you want things? I want a new car. I want a new cell phone. I want a new house. I want a new family and new kids. I want a new church. I don't need those things. I have those things. Now I'm dissatisfied with those things. That's a heart issue, right? So James is now going to attack that we have an abundance and yet are dissatisfied. We are satisfied in every way except the thing that matters the most, Jesus. And so he says, let's go back to James, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. So he says, your riches have been moth-eaten, they have fallen apart, and they are dilapidated. So back to the story, I went to go see a guy in his 80s, And I went to his house, and he's lived in the same house for 30 years. And it is in disrepair. Like the paint and the walls, and he's actually been taking care of it. It's actually quite nice. But all of the energy and effort put into this house, and it is just decaying. And I thought instantly of all of my things that I am so proud of, my beautiful home and my beautiful car, and how it is just gonna fall apart. There's nothing you can do. It will erode and decay. And this is what James is talking about. You have pursued riches at all costs, and now it just melts away and it's gone. But it gets worse, because he says it turns to napalm. That you have pursued a lifestyle for things, and it's going to stick to you and it's going to burn you. Listen to this. He says this: your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you. These things will be used as in a court trial to accuse you of a crime, that you have loved your things more than you have loved God. Then he says, it will eat your flesh like fire. The only thing that I can think of is napalm. Napalm is a gelatinized fuel, like mixed with gasoline. So it's a jelly gasoline, and they drop a bomb and it explodes and everything catches on fire. And it's not just like on fire, it's sticky. So if it touches you, it'll sit there and it'll just continue to burn. That's what our things are like. That on the day of judgment, all of our pursuit of all of the riches that we have stored up, they will cling to us and burn as if fire, a judgment against us. That's why he introduces this by saying, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. That this is a future event that is coming, and we are to wail as somebody being burned alive, just screaming, weep and howl. He says, you have stored up these treasures in the last days. So this has to do with avarice. Avarice is a fancy word. I just learned it tonight, so I want to present it. It means an extreme greed for wealth or material gain. Avarice is that hunger that drives you for more and more and more and more when you have already an abundance. It is a dissatisfaction where you have to pursue being a millionaire, being a multimillionaire, being a multimillionaire to a billionaire. I always wondered, at what point do you become satisfied with money? I don't know if you guys watch money stuff on YouTube or anything, but there's a level of wealth that these people, when they start out, they don't have a lot, and they gain and they gain and they gain, and you can see the hard work, and you're like, oh wow, I can relate to that because we're working so hard, and we want to build a future for our families and a foundation for them. And there's nothing wrong with building wealth. If you look through Proverbs, it talks about the wise man, the righteous man leaving an inheritance. Like, the problem isn't the wealth, but they have an enough, they have an abundance, and yet they're always dissatisfied. And it turns into covetousness. And that covetousness is now idolatry. First, we worship ourselves thinking that we can design our lives. Second, we worship things thinking that they will bring us happiness. We worship material items, and they become our God that we live for, that we worship, that we bow down to, that we give and sacrifice all of our life for. This God, our money. And that's what was happening with these rich people. Learning satisfaction is a very godly trait. It's not that you give up pursuit. It's not that you stop trying. It's that you feel content and do not worship and sacrifice for the thing, right? Like, we still work for money. For all intents and purposes, we are filthy, filthy rich. We don't make that much money. But from a perspective, you would think like, aren't you satisfied? Like, why are you even still doing this? I do it because I enjoy it. I do it because God has given me a purpose. God has designed us to work, to bear fruit, and to enjoy the fruit of our labor. Not to worship it, not to live for it, and certainly not to die for it. And so he goes on, verse 4, behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, right? You committed fraud. They are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person, and he does not resist you. So he says that they have victims. He says that they have luxury. And he says that they have judgment and flawed judgment, that they have brought injustice and murder and blood is on their hands. They have defrauded their employees. So these are entrepreneurs who, instead of giving the promised wage, held back a wage. This is the idea of, I hire you to come do landscaping at my house. You do the landscaping, and then I come up with an excuse to only pay you partially. I say, oh, well, you didn't do that properly and you damaged this. And since you damaged it, I'm going to have to fix it. So I'm going to hold that back out of your wages. Well, they didn't damage it. And I know they didn't damage it. So now I'm lying. I started out with a purpose to bear fruit unto God. And now I have been corrupted into crossing that boundary and losing my character and losing my honor. For what? Money. Pastor Ben told a story about this. There was a guy in his church and he taught Bible study, very prolific teacher. Everybody loved him. What a great guy. And all of a sudden he gets arrested. He got arrested for defrauding his company. He moved up into a position. He was blessed. God gave him prosperity, and he got to a position where he had an opportunity to steal. And at first it was very small and it was very little. And then eventually it turned into, 1,000 here, and then tens of thousands, and then hundreds of thousands. And then he just wanted more, and he was buying this house, and he was getting a lake house, and he was doing this, and he was doing that, and he became greedy. It was avarice, an extreme hunger for greed and material objects. It corrupted his soul. And that's where it talks about, you have fattened your hearts in the day of slaughter. The heart is not meant to be fat. It's supposed to be well exercised and holy. The soul of human beings is supposed to be in shape to serve Jesus, to love God, to cast out all ubiquitous and evil thoughts, and to pursue Him single-heartedly, single-mindedly. But instead, the heart grew fat with the hunger and the thirst for riches. And now the day of slaughter has come. God is going to require that soul, and He is going to bring it to bear. Let's read Luke chapter 12, verse 21. So, two brothers come to Jesus, and they say, hey, Jesus, our parents just died, and in the will, all the money goes to my older brother, but he should split it with me. Jesus, tell him he should split it with me. So Jesus tells a story. Verse 13, someone in the crowd said to him, Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. And he said to him, Man, who made me a judge or arbitrator over you? And he said to them, listen to this, take heed or take care and be vigilant on your guard against all covetousness. That's that word avarice. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. And he told them a parable, saying, The land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have more than enough. You have ample goods laid up for you for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things that you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Laying up the treasure is not the problem. It is only having riches on earth. We need to have our riches in heaven. And Jesus warns against an evil hunger for money, for resources, for material. And it's funny that he tells this story because it's all about an abundance of prosperity. Where there is an abundance of prosperity, there is a risk of your heart growing fat and hungering for more. So when there is prosperity, we need to be alert and on guard. We need to guard our heart because we might fall into a snare, a trap of covetousness, another form of idolatry, not worshiping ourselves, not worshiping God, but worshiping things, giving our life for something else than Jesus. Application. What is our life? It's momentary. It's short. It's small. It's insignificant. It's here and it's gone. What is our comfort? What satisfies our heart? Are we satisfied in the Lord? Or are we satisfied in other things? Our houses, our jobs. Now, this is a tough one. To be fair, I'm a Jesus freak first and foremost. Like, I'm a Christian. But soon after that, I'm an electrician. And that's a badge I like. And there will be a day when that badge is gone. I always look at it, driving down the road, you see like bumper stickers or shirts. It says like, retired iron worker, or, wife of a sailor. There's a position and a satisfaction that comes by saying like, I'm a person who does a thing, but it's so momentary. I'm working with this guy. He's 65 years old and he's an electrician. He doesn't like being an electrician. But just think about it. You wake up one day and the thing that you used to love is now the thing that you hate. Or the thing you used to be good at is now the thing you're not good at. Like, I'm a basketball player. Now I'm 65 and I can't play basketball. My identity is gone. We need to be satisfied in Jesus. No matter our status in this world, no matter the prosperity that we get in this world, we need to be satisfied in Jesus. Our job will go. Our health will go. Our prosperity will go. We'll pass it on. We're not gonna carry anything to heaven. We need to be satisfied in Christ. And what is your conviction? Are you willing to do what is right no matter the cost? See, a person who is hungering or dissatisfied with God and hungering for something else, they will lose conviction. They will choose something over honoring God or even honoring their word for this other item. This is where all sin comes from. Instead of exalting and honoring the Maker, they commit sin that dishonors their Maker because they wanted that thing more than honoring God. And that can be anything. That can be pride, that can be lying, that can be adultery, that can be pornography, that can be alcohol, there's the list of sin. It is all about this. I treasure that more than I treasure God. Next week, we will talk about being grounded in praying, and we will finish up James